emojis hit fast, reacted acts fast.
I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours.
Shot of Avenue Road and Bloor Street. Good Wednesday morning. Welcome back to BT. Tammy and Sid here with you. Okay, let's shift gears. So, sports washing. How familiar are you with the term sports washing?
I would say that I learned about this, funny enough, when it came to this, related to the story we're going to talk about when it comes to Live Golf.
Right.
And when this popped up, this Live Golf League popped up last year in Saudi Arabia, that is when all of a sudden you started hearing more and more about sports washing. And now this story is just wild to me as someone who doesn't follow golf. I think it's incredible.
And I know a lot of you aren't golf people, but this transcends golf. There's something else going on here. So sports washing is a term attributed to a regime that wants to kind of soften their image around the world. Qatar did it with the FIFA World Cup. They tried. And Saudi Arabia over the last 2 years have really gone to great lengths to bring in sports to try and kind of get the word out that Saudi Arabia isn't the oppressive regime that we all know, quite frankly, it is. And they've done it with Formula One recently. Alan, just in 2022 or 2021, Formula One races are going to Saudi Arabia? Recently? Just recently, right? So Formula One is now associated with Saudi Arabia. WWE have had a slew of events in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian soccer, they brought in Cristiano Ronaldo. They just offered Karim Benzema of Real Madrid $200 million a year to play in Saudi Arabia.
A year.
So it's happening in soccer as well. And about 18 months ago in golf, they started to do the same thing. Saudi Arabia said, we want to get in the golf business to spread the word of Saudi Arabia. So they started Live Golf. And Live Golf tried to poach a bunch of golfers from the PGA Tour by offering them $50 million, $100 million, $200 million just to play in this new tour. Now, there were a lot of golfers who said, A, I don't want to be associated with Saudi Arabia at all, and they turned down that kind of money. And the PGA Tour were very virtuous in what they said and encouraged their golfers, do not go and take the money from this Saudi Arabian Golf League. Now, a year ago, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, while in Canada at the Canadian Open at Royal St. George's, spoke to Jim Nantz live on CBS about Saudi Arabia, connections to 9/11, 9/11 families in the United States. A column just was posted in the New York Post. This is what the commissioner of the PGA Tour said a year ago in Canada while Saudi Arabia were trying to steal all of his golfers.
I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?
That was a year ago. Yesterday, that same man cut a deal with Saudi Arabia and Live Golf. They are now partners. No golfer knew about this on the PGA Tour. It was the best kept secret in sports, and it dropped like a bomb yesterday. Along with the European Tour, they're now all going to work together to form a new organization that, in their eyes, will grow golf around the world and inject a lot of money into golf. The reality here is Saudi Arabia will be pouring the most money into this. And there are people who are now basically saying out loud, Saudi Arabia Trojan horsed their way in and took over golf. They now own it. And there are other sports organizations looking at this going, whoa, could this happen here? And there are golfers on the PGA Tour, most of them at Oakdale, at Shepherd in the 400 for the Canadian Tour stop this week, the PGA Tour stop this week, who are furious. There was a meeting yesterday at 4 o'clock. The commissioner came up for it. It was ugly. If I'm a golfer and I was part of the PGA Tour and I turned down all that money at a principal and you just cut this deal with Saudi Arabia, I retire. I retire. Rory McIlroy is one of the biggest golfers in the world. I walk away. I want nothing to do with this. And I think there's going to be real ramifications here because there were a lot of legal issues as to why they settled together. And now they're out of court. But I have a real issue with this. What's your take on it?
It's so hypocritical when you look back at, even if you do not follow golf and you look at a clip like the one that you just showed with Jay Monahan, and that is just one of several times where he has spoken to the media about the fact that players who were with the PGA and went to live decided and made that decision were going to be suspended. Phil Mickelson was dragged for that as well, if I remember correctly, last year.
Oh, yes.
So to hear all of that, and you just reflect on what was said before about these players leaving the PGA and going to live and being suspended, being penalized for it, and then in the end, you read these quotes from a news release that says, you know, we're happy to be together and be on board. It's just like, wow, what happened over the last year? I don't know if any dollar amounts have been talked about yet, have been released, but I would be very interested in finding out exactly how much this deal was worth to both the PGA and to the DP World Tour as well.
One of the biggest issues was Brooks Koepka, who took the money with Saudi Arabia, won a major the other day. And PGA Tour sponsors are like, what are we doing here? If we're going to give you money, we need the best golfers in the world. Listen, I'm not sure where this is going. The Canadian Open has been completely overshadowed at Oakdale this week. It's unfortunate. But if I'm a golfer on the PGA Tour, I'll end it here. And I have real principles, and I wanted nothing to do with Saudi Arabia, who couldn't care less about anyone's human rights. And you're telling me you now struck a deal with them? I got a big, big, big problem with that. And I don't know how Jay Monahan, who's now one of the most hated men in sports, is going to navigate that. I don't think he's as slick as he thinks he is. This is going to be a problem for him, to be continued. But it's all coming to a head here, not far from us, at the Canadian Open in Oakdale, to be continued. But it is a shocking story, and the sports washing story continues in sports. We'll see where it goes. All right, more BT coming up. Tammy's got a full news update. There's a lot going on. Also coming up, we want to put more pork on your fork, with some perfect summer pork recipes that your whole family will love. That throws a landmine every time, and I'm aware. More BT coming up.